Good afternoon, class. My name is Dr. Majeed Mohammed, coordinator of Ugrc 150. And the title of the course is Critical Thinking and Practical Reasoning. I must express my happiness for your ability to go through the course and the difficulty you've gone through for the 13 weeks of lectures. I'm saying difficulty because I've been there before, and the most interesting aspect of it is the nature of the course that I am coordinating. They say logic, as if logic is not difficult enough. We want you to think critically. What is this about? You watched a video on critical thinking that gave you an overview of what the course is about. But for the purposes of this exam, we are not going to answer any question on the meaning of critical thinking. This exam will cover 7 units out of the 13 that you have in your reader. The units to be covered are Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 5, Unit 6, Unit 7, and 10. And the nature of the exam is this, that you will have multiple choice questions in addition to questions that require that you supply some short answers. Under the various units, you are supposed to pay particular attention to the things I'm going to mention here. Under Unit 1, you should learn or have good knowledge of the types of sentence-shaped thought. These are declaratives, imperatives, and interrogatives. Declaratives have types. These are statements that inform us of something. Learn about all of them. Imperatives are commands, the various forms that commands come, and then interrogatives, which are questions. It also has, they also have types. After that, you learn about sentence fragments and emotive expressions. Sentence fragments being expressions that pretend to be sentences, yet they are not because they are incomplete. And then emotive expressions, different ways of expressing emotion. That's all for Unit 1. In Unit 2, you should learn about the 6 types of definition. All of them are important. After that, we should also know the difference between well-defined terms and open class concepts. One is the exact opposite of the other. Whilst well-defined terms give us complete meaning of terms, open class concepts lead us to controversial situations because the meaning of those terms are so wide that everybody can put in an explanation. You should know the difference between them and how to write examples of these. And the final item to learn under Unit 2 will be problems associated with definitions. The common type of definition that we have, will be the one that we see in our dictionaries. They are good definitions, but there are ways of writing definitions in which we are led to situations where we cannot be sure the kind of meaning that we are trying to put across. So the problems associated with definitions should also be looked at carefully. And that does it for Unit 2. Then Unit 3 deals with language. You should learn the difference between a few things. The first is the difference between verbal and substantive disputes. Verbal disputes are easily managed, but substantive disputes cannot be resolved easily because they are disputes about the core meaning of terms. After this, you should also know the difference between metaphors and proverbs. Somehow there is something common between them because they are not to be taken literally, and they are also ways of expressing our feeling. But the problem is that both of them are open to controversy because different people can have different ways of interpreting proverbs and metaphors. The third item that you should learn here will be problems that relate to our expression of views. The first is ambiguity, vagueness, and equivocation. These are also called fallacies, but we are not there yet. But having gone through the course, I am sure you are aware that these are forms of fallacy. What is it that makes a sentence or a statement ambiguous or vague or an equivocation? The most important thing to watch between the three here is the question of vagueness. If a sentence is vague, it means that something is not defined precisely. So vagueness can be corrected when the sentence that is open, the word that is open or expression that is open, that involves too many things or too many people, is made precise. Then the vagueness will go away. So after this, the last thing you should do is to consider the types of passage that we have. There are 4 of them mentioned in your book. Some passages are narratives. You may have a passage that is a mere rhetoric. A passage may be an argument, and a passage may be an instruction. So you should know how to identify what is an argument, what an argument is, an instruction, a rhetoric, and a narrative. With this, you are done with Unit 3. Then you go to Unit 5. Here we are to learn about the 6 senses of law, or if you like, 6 types of law. But there is one that I want to talk about, the statutory law or civil law. There we have laws that are enacted by representatives of the people of a country to regulate the activities of people within that country. In areas where we don't have parliaments or representatives of the people, there are still governments. So laws that are made are civil. But there is a difference between customary law and a cultural norm and a civil law. I want you to pay attention to the distinction between the two. One is a law, one is a norm. And why is one a law and the other a norm? When you are able to do this, then you look at the difference between factual and value judgments. These are not new. Factual judgments are the same as factual statements, which we have done or dealt with under the first unit, declaratives, and value judgments are also there. So you should know the difference between them. And the last item under Unit 5 will be knowing the explicit and implicit meaning of statements. If you are intelligent and somebody tells you something, if there is a motive behind it, you should be able to know. If you take things at face value, you haven't done critical thinking. That is the essence of this course. Going beyond the ordinary to know the deeper meaning of things. So statements may carry explicit meanings, but they may have implicit meanings. Ways of identifying the two have been clearly established in the reader. Make sure that you know this. Then, Unit 6. Under this unit, you should be able to distinguish between inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning, induction and deduction. Although the topic is inductive reasoning versus deductive reasoning, or induction versus deduction, much attention is paid to deduction under this unit. So you have induction in Unit 7. So know the difference between deduction and induction here. After that, everything under this unit is about deduction. So you should know the deductive rules. Deductive rules are many, but at level 100, the author or authors of the reader believe that knowing how to write valid syllogisms will be enough for you to understand what deduction is. So you should understand what a syllogism is. You are given 4 main types, know them. Deductive reasoning is solid and can never lead you to error because you deduce a final truth or final proposition from what has already been established. And if something is true and you pull something from it, that thing is also supposed to be true, since it is a subset in mathematical parlance of the original truth. And there are ways of writing syllogisms wrongly. These are what we call syllogistic fallacies. You should also pay attention to the syllogistic fallacies. After that, there is only one thing to know: the meaning of the term validity. When do we use the term valid? Know that, and you are done for Unit 6. Then we go to Unit 7, where we deal with induction. In induction, the premises and the conclusion appear differently from deductive premises and conclusion. The premises of an inductive argument are verifiable, but the conclusion is not verifiable, but confirmable. So you should distinguish between verifiable and confirmable statements. After that, you know we want to pay some attention to the conclusion of inductive argument or reasoning. They come in 2 ways: statistical conclusion and law-like conclusion. And we know already that the conclusion of an inductive reasoning is called a hypothesis. So statistical hypothesis and law-like hypothesis. The statistical hypothesis have hypothesis, that is the general form of hypothesis. Hypothesis, which is the plural, ends with es, and the singular is. So statistical hypotheses have a lesser predictive power compared with law-like. You should know the difference between why this is so. After that, you should know how to write or identify an enumerative inductive argument. Enumerative induction is when you have a list of premises followed by the summary of it and then the hypothesis. And when you've done this, we want you to see the link between induction and science. scientific reasoning is not solid. I shouldn't say solid, it's not certain. Unlike logical reasoning, the kind of reasoning we have in deduction. Anything said by science can be changed later. So scientific statements are not certain. They can change. But this change, this uncertainty about science is a virtue. So you should understand why we say it is a virtue. It's also there. Then we are ready to tackle our last unit, which is informal fallacies. The number of fallacies discussed in your reader are many, but I want you to concentrate on a few. You should read about equivocation, ad hominem, illegitimate appeal to authority, appeal to force, appeal to pity, begging the question, grandstanding, and hasty generalization. But in doing this, you should understand that some of them can be expressed or can be, described in other ways. Grandstanding has other ways of appearing. So if you don't want to say grandstanding, what do you say? If you don't want to say appeal to pity, you can say it in another form, which is in your book. Appeal to force is also there. The only one which is Latin here is ad hominem, that you take it like that. It is when you argue against a person but not against his arguments. It's a bad way of reasoning. If you know this, then you are ready for the exam. But before I leave you, I would offer you a simple advice. Critical thinking is founded on logic, and logic is handled in philosophy as our main tool of investigation. Every human being is a logical being, whether you've studied philosophy before or not. Our ways of thinking are governed by logic. For instance, I can't say today is Tuesday, but today is not Tuesday. Only a mad person will say this. But in reading, using various logical principles, what you do is that you don't take things at the face value. You want to think critically about issues. So your exam will require that you think about what you have read and not just memorize things. What does this fallacy mean? You can learn, but how can you construct one? Or how can you prevent yourself from committing such a fallacy? You should be very composed. If you rush, you are going to have problems because you are likely to pick answers that are not well thought through. You just don't look at your friends on your right-hand side, everybody has started, left-hand side, everybody has started, then you also start. When you do that, you are not going to do well in logic. Think about every answer very well. There is a reason why some answers are not good, and there is a reason why you should pick certain answers. I wish you the best and good luck.